45 years, 0 name changes, new offices, more staff, improved technology to better serve you. Education, services, investments. Think real estate, think Marshall Reddick. Brokerage, property management, private lending, creating financial independence through real estate since 1979. Well, thank you everybody for joining tonight. My name is Cameron Carlson and I'll be presenting alongside Josh Gutierrez for one of our more popular subjects, new construction, Texas, and some of our amazing opportunities and investments. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview today of the market and an update as well. And before we dive in, some of you might be familiar with Marshall Reddick, and for others of you, this might be your first time. Easiest way I can break down Marshall Reddick is essentially a one-stop shop for real estate. So we are a full-service brokerage. Whether you're looking to buy and sell investment property or your primary residence, we've got you. Number two is we are a full-service professional property manager. We'll talk later in this webinar on what that looks like. We also offer private financing. So for some people looking to get a loan, they might not qualify for conventional. Maybe they're tapped out on conventional loans, or they're just looking to do a little bit less red tape financing. Well, Marshall Reddick offers a private lending option for private money lending. And then on the flip side of that, we offer investments into those private mortgages. Now, all of these loans are investment loans only, but you can join a pool of capital and invest in those loans and collect a quarterly distribution. I myself am an investor in the mortgage fund, but essentially those are the 4 divisions of Marshall Reddick Real Estate. And a little bit about me. So I'm a licensed real estate agent here in California in our Newport office. I also got a business degree from Vanguard University, which is down the street from Newport. I originally started in real estate accounting, and when I mentioned some of the private financing that we allow, I actually underwrote loans for Marshall Reddick as well. And so I was a part of our private lending team, and then I got the opportunity to work on our management side for property management to just kind of understand and get a better overview of the real estate industry. I've also completed real estate transactions in 9 different states, whether that be 1031 exchanges, buying, selling, primary residence, investments. I'm also a fund investor. So when I told you about the Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund, I don't just talk about it, but I invest with Marshall Reddick and I own real estate as well. And I bought with Marshall Reddick myself. So I'm also a real estate owner and investor. And a little bit about the topics we're going to cover today. So first, we're going to talk about, how do we set our investment criteria when we're looking at, is new construction for me? Are we looking for something that's going to be a little bit more turnkey, less maintenance? Like, why choose new construction? Something else is we're going to look at an update of the current inventory that we have. Josh will give you a very in-depth overview of what the new construction inventory is. We'll look at some of the neighborhoods that produce the highest return, why the builders chose to build in these areas, why they're good for investments. And then we're going to take a look at the calculations, the pro formas. We're going to have like a really in-depth view of some property picks today. What are the incentives that the builders are offering? We're going to look at rate buy downs, some programs that really help you as the investor. And then we're going to look at the pros and cons of new construction altogether. And then last but not least, as I mentioned, we'll get a little bit into property management and what that looks like for us. So with Marshall Reddick, if you're wondering where our offices are located, I've got a beautiful map here that kind of paints a picture. We are located nationally. If you look on your left of the screen, it's going to start in California, where we have offices in the Bay Area, Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside. As we move over to Texas, which we're going to be focusing on today, you'll notice that we have offices in Austin, Texas, New Braunfels, San Antonio, Houston. When we shift over to Tennessee, we've got an office in Clarksville and Nashville, and we also have an office in Cape Coral. And you may be wondering, well, how do you select those markets? Why did Marshall Reddick choose to be in those markets? Well, there's a very specific reason why. And number one, they have very good job markets, low unemployment rate, good economic diversity there. We want to see a low vacancy rate. So the average days on market for when a property goes vacant is low in a lot of these markets we're looking at. A high amount of renters versus homeowners. So there's a good, I would say, pool of tenants. Economic diversity. It's not just like everything's in the tech industry, and if the tech industry goes, then the whole market's gone. A lot of the markets that we invest in, including Texas that we're going to talk about today, they're going to have a very diverse array of economics. So they're going to see government jobs, you're going to see maybe medical jobs, you're going to see the tech industry, a little bit of everything. So when one market goes, you have the others to supplement it. What's the housing affordability? It's not as easy to cash flow a property in California as it would be in Texas. So there's a low barrier of entry, making it easier for investors to find investment properties. Is the state landlord friendly? As you guys probably know, it's a lot more landlord friendly in Texas and Tennessee and other states. It's another reason why we chose these states. Is the education system good? A lot of the suburbs of the metropolitans we chose have great school districts. Maybe there's a university, maybe there's a couple universities. Those are going to be very good areas to target when looking at investments. And then what is the property management looking like? Are there one or two options for property management? And if you got a really bad experience with one property manager, you don't really have a choice. Or are there a lot of property managers and it's a competitive property management market? So you're going to get fair rates for property management and high quality service. Those are all really important factors that Marshall Reddick chose when deciding on the markets that we place our boots. And speaking of our team, we're going to kind of go through. We'll start in the top left and go around a circle. You got our new Braunfels office. You'll see Josh in the picture there in the top left. That's kind of our Central Texas team there. Some of our Austin team came down for that photo. In the top right, you've got our San Antonio office. That's our San Antonio team. And these offices are comprised of realtors, property management staff, private lending, accountants. The bottom right is going to be our Tennessee office. You've got our California Newport Beach office on the bottom middle, and then the bottom left, you've got our Florida office. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Josh Gutierrez, who's going to give a brief introduction and continue the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today in your busy work schedules to get a little bit of edification on the Texas real estate market. A little bit about myself. This is the slide I hate the most, but I will start with it. I've been in the mortgage industry since 2003. I worked for Wells Fargo for about 13 to 14 years. Did anything from mailroom to, supporting a team of 20 towards the last stint of my tenure there. And, I just took the plunge in 2017 and said, hey, you know what? I got to change it up. Got to get out of the hamster wheel, right? And just started in real estate with Marshall Reddick, and we've been growing together ever since. It's been a perfect fit, and I love what I do, helping real estate investors from out of state find financial freedom through real estate. So that's what I'm doing now. I started off as a leasing agent. So why is that important for me to share with you guys? Whenever I'm relaying some of the properties and telling you about rents, I did that for a whole year. That's all I did was lease property every single day. I did about 10 to 15 leases a month on average. But that gave me some insight to the market, the different pockets around the city of San Antonio. And I think that's what's made me a better realtor to better serve the consumer, you guys, right? And that way I can tell you which pockets to stay in, which ones to not go to. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. Now I'm doing full-time sales with a team with advisors from Newport Beach, and Cameron is one of them. Let's see if this allows me to change slides. Okay. So let's talk about real estate investing criteria. I know a lot of the times when you start about when you hear, there's a lot of podcasts right now, right? Like you can drink so much information off of the internet, and you're going to get slammed with all this information. it almost seems overwhelming. But if you stick to these basic questions, you should be okay, right? Not everyone's real estate path is the same. Everyone has a different path. Everyone is at a different stage in life. But you want to ask these basic questions about your financial goals and your real estate investing journey, right? So income, do I want to cash flow? Do I want to focus on appreciation? Am I looking to retire like in the next 15 years, or am I just starting young, right? Have I ever done it before, right? So a lot of investors usually ask me like, hey, Josh, what do I do? Like, how do I get going? And most of the times we do baby steps, right? We get started with a single family, something really light, and then we move on from there. And then eventually they end up in the duplexes, fourplexes, and they scale up. And we'll talk a little bit about that more down the line in the slides in the presentation. Have you ever done gotten a pre-approval before? We'll walk you through that. How much can you afford? So these are all basic things you want to ask, so that way we know how to like laser focus and guide you through the process. Okay. So keep those questions in mind whenever you're thinking about real estate investing. So we like to share this slide here about San Antonio. And it really, you know, I know it says San Antonio, but you can also look at it like Central Texas, okay? Because it covers a lot of that area. When you're looking at the appreciation, the growth that's happened in San Antonio, it's really fascinating to see that every year, and you can go all the way back on this chart from 99 to now, it's always been pretty solid. And it's funny because a lot of people before COVID, they would invest here, but it was still kind of like a hidden gem. Well, not so much anymore, right? A lot of people know about San Antonio, the growth that it's experienced. New Braunfels, Seguin, South Austin, all those areas have a similar appreciation trend. You can bank on a 5% growth. And I'm not even counting the COVID years, because if you can see here, 2021, 2022, that's an anomaly, right? We'll probably never see that ever again. And then obviously 2023 took a little bit of a correction because it was so high in 2021, 2022, right? So that's normal. But if you average this out, I mean, it's been about 5%, year on year. So not bad for an area if you're thinking about investing out of state. So when you look at a property, two things are gonna pop in your head about variables, right? Because you have your fixed expenses, things that you can't change, right? Like your taxes, your insurance, your mortgage, right? Your principal and interest. But then there's the variables, which is maintenance and vacancy. Maintenance and vacancy, if you haven't looked into what we call the Marshall Reddick Bible, which is a property rating class book, I really encourage you to go to our learning tab in the Marshall Reddick website. Look at that e-property rating book, and it's going to tell you about the classes and how we calculate the percentages, okay? Obviously, the nicer the property, the less vacancy and the less maintenance. If the property is in a troubled area, high crime, bad school district, you're looking more like C class, and you're going to have a higher vacancy and maintenance. Okay, so these are things you want to consider when you're investing. That's why it's important for us to kind of like highlight this right now, because the properties that we're going to show you are going to be in areas that are B class and A class. I stay away from the C class. Some people use that as their model, but through Marshall Reddick and the way we've been able to successfully help a lot of the investors, we focus on B plus and A class. Now, when you're looking at an investment property, a lot of people, depending on the market that you live in, will say, man, I want to be right by everything. I want to be right by downtown. I want to have all the amenities next to my investment. And that seems to work a lot of the times for like a Airbnb because you want amenities close by. You want to be in the happening spots. But if you're doing LTR, which is the long-term rental play, you want to be where families are, right? You want to be in the suburbs. You want to be in areas where they're going to rent for 2 to 3 years on average. And looking at this chart, and Cameron, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I'm looking at here is where we have our rentals in the area. And this is where it's highlighting every property where we're located. And you can see the clusters of where we're focusing at. Let's see here. So you're going to see a grouping in New Braunfels. You're going to see a grouping in Seguin. And then you're going to look at the northeast corridor and the far west corridor because they have similar dynamics. For Austin, you notice that we have very few markers in the middle of Austin, which is like the very highly developed area because it's probably very expensive and it won't cash flow. But when you're looking at Round Rock, Pflugerville, Buda, these are places we're looking at to invest because they're growing and it's still reasonably priced. Here's a little more of what we were talking about, area demographics for renters, and that's why you want to look at like suburb areas. And this is a cool snapshot that shows you like what's happening currently in the areas of Central Texas and why we're focusing on investment properties in those areas. The Hill Country, very popular area for us. You're talking like Fredericksburg, Kerrville. That's known as our wine country. You're going to have winter Texans there. You're going to have a lot of like boutiques and shops out there in the Hill Country. For San Antonio, there's a lot of manufacturing, heavy military presence, and lots of medical employment. We're known as Military City, USA. We have several military installations. I believe we have 5. And at any given time, you can have 85 to 100,000 service members walking the streets of San Antonio. Okay. Going further up into the region towards Austin, going north, obviously, you know, there's been a big job migration for tech, right? Tesla, Facebook, Google, all those guys are, all the giants are there in Austin. But in between there, there's little gems like Seguin that have been major employer hubs for years, right? And now they're finally getting the recognition as a real estate powerhouse for investing. Cameron, can you select the next slide for me? Thank you. So how do we look for inventory? Well, just like every other realtor, we do have an MLS here. We look through the MLS to find deals. That's a very popular and basic option. We're associated with every single board of realtors that's between here and Austin. We even go as far as Dallas if needed, but we're also in Houston now. That's one way. A second way is we do manage in-house. We do property management. And one of the cool things, and a huge part of the way I've been able to help a lot of investors is when a Marshall Reddick investor who's managing through us is ready to offboard a property, it may be a fit for someone else who's looking to come into the game. And that's been an easy handoff because we're managing an A and B class property already that's rented. And then we get to help someone else take over it and move into it as their first investment or as an additional asset to their real estate investment portfolio. That's one of my favorite ways to help people because it's almost, these are pocket listings. You're going to know about them before anyone else. Before we put them on the market, we'll put them on the Marshall Reddick website, and then you can take a look at them and see if you want to take a chance and submit an offer. Third, what you're going to see a lot of towards the end of my slides is the builder relationships. So we have the MLS, we have our internal network of properties through property management, and then we've been fostering relationships with builders in the area because we've been telling them, hey, we have great investors, they're well educated. What kind of product do you have to offer them? So we've developed a very solid relationship with 4 major multifamily builders in the area. These guys love Marshall Reddick investors. You know, they do everything for an investor because they're investors themselves. So when you're looking at their property, they've already built it with that mindset of, I don't want to have carpet. I want to make it as seamless as possible and a turnkey property at the point of closing. So that's 3 ways that we can help investors find inventory in our market. Let's talk about some pros and cons about new construction. Texas is growing, so you're going to see construction almost everywhere you go around here, especially if you're looking at one of the pockets in either the far west, northeast, New Braunfels, Seguin, South Austin. I mean, you drive through that whole corridor, you're going to see a construction truck. You're going to see a frame going up. It's just part of our MO right now. It's just the way of it is in Central Texas. A lot of people say, hey, well, it's brand new, it's being built up. But you know, a lot of the tenants, a lot of the primary home owners here have kind of gotten accustomed to it. They know that, hey, if I want to live in a new place, there's going to be some phases coming along. It's part of living in a new property. One of the things you have to be very careful, and one of the things that I do a lot of research on is if I'm helping an investor get into a new single family community, you want to make sure that it's not oversaturated already with other investors and that you just have so many people just pitching different rents, competing against you. That's not a good situation to be in. So a lot of the times, myself or other partners, other realtors in the company, we make sure to ask the questions of how many phases are you going to be going through, builder? How many investors have bought since you opened up the property? What's the percentage of investors versus primary homeowners? And those are things that you have to ask because you don't want to be caught battling other investors to get your place rented, because then it could really hinder your appreciation. It could hinder your cash flow. Pros, let's talk about some pros. It's going to come with a warranty, right? You're usually going to get a 1, 2, 10 warranty. Sometimes people say it very fast, a 1, 2, 10, and you're like, what did you say? It's 1, 2, 10. 1 year bump. We say doorknob to doorknob warranty. Everything's covered. 2 year, you know, electrical, plumbing, and then your 10 years, your structural, right? Foundation, trusses, and whatnot. And that's going to give you peace of mind knowing that you're buying into something that's going to be taken care of, right? Everything's being built to the recent code. And when you're dealing with brand new builders, they're more than likely to negotiate because they have higher volumes of inventory, right? It's not like they're going to take it personal when they do a deal with you if you submit an offer. Primary homeowners, you know, there's some emotional attachment, so you're going to have to go back and forth sometimes in some situations. Another cool thing about new construction is you're going to have city inspections. You're going to have your third-party inspection. So there's a lot of like areas where there's checks and balances when you're doing new construction, and that gives you peace of mind as well. Okay, some things to remember, and I'm going to hit on these real quick because I want to move on to looking at the properties. Always remember, try to be the first in the communities or the last phase, right? If you're coming in early into the community, you're just opening yourself up for appreciation because communities tend to go up in value, right, as you move along in the phases. If you get to the last phase, that's not a bad thing either, just because you're not going to compete with a lot of, you might get a deal just because they're closing out the community. Also, you're not going to have a lot of doors closing at the same time and competing against rents, against a bunch of other doors closing at the same time as you are. I try to stay in small communities, so that way you don't have a lot of inventory. I just don't like to compete with a bunch of investors. So I try to stick to small communities that are more exclusive, a little more private. School districts, right? You want to be in a good school district. If you can find a master plan community with amenities that's close and has a school inside, that's even better, because that makes things a lot easier for your tenant. So those are things that you can keep in mind when you're looking at new construction. A couple other things is to keep in mind is if you're buying a single family home, you want to do or look and do your due diligence to find things or attributes that the property can have that the others don't. If you can find a bigger lot, if it can be closer to the amenity center, that's also great. For multifamily developments, again, bigger lot. Most of the models are identical. They're going to be the same. So you want to stand out with something that's a little different from the others. And we can help you find those lots too when we are going through the inventory. Keynote, don't try to buy something that's way out as far as a build time. You want to build something that's within 60 days just because of volatility of the rates. Things can change so fast. They may change for the better, but they also can change for the worse. So you try to get something that's more to the proximity of your time frame for closing. So that way your rate doesn't get messed up. Key point here, I know we touched on it before. Try not to buy in a community that's saturated with investors. I try to stay between 15 to 20%, if that. But I try not to be in communities where they're just like slammed with investors. In multifamily communities, you want to be in A and B class neighborhoods, low crime. You want to, this is the way I say it. You want to be in a growing area, but with still amenities within arm's reach, right? Like within 5 to 10 minutes. That's usually been a good recipe for success when we're helping investors buy multifamily. Okay, here's the sweet spot. When you're looking at single family brand new, try not to go under 1,400 square feet. As a matter of fact, try to stay away from under 1,400 square feet. And the reason I say that is because most of the times families are looking at single family homes, you know, mom and dad, 2 kids. You want to get a 2-car garage if necessary, because we have found that families that tend to rent longer have stayed longer in homes that are of this size with this makeup. If it has an added room, great, right? Because now with the dynamic of COVID, someone's always getting homeschooled, or mom and dad is either working from home, right? Backyard amenity, if you can find with a patio or a slab, something that'll give them their little retreat, even better, right? Those are things on a single family that I have found where they get better rents. They showcase better when you're marketing them for rent, and it helps you in your investment. It reduces the vacancy. On multifamily, if you can, so one of the things I'm going to point out here is the xeriscaping and the bigger lots. If you don't know what xeriscaping is, it's usually rock out front. Tenants aren't cutting the yard out front, and you don't have to worry about that with xeriscaping. The community is always going to look nice anytime you drive by it. try to get them with sprinkler systems. Most of the builders we work with do it all anyway, so you're going to have that. And if it's situated next to a single family home community, which means it has a already an established presence of like family oriented communities, even better, right? Because that means you're going to be in a good area with good school districts and low crime. Again, what we were saying, try to be in an area that's experiencing growth, that has all these dynamics, right? Employer, job diversification, close to infrastructure, right? Highways and byways. And if you can get in an area where there's growth happening, but you're right by one of the giants, right? Which I call the Texas Triangle, in between Austin, Houston, and San Antonio. If you can get next to one of those in areas that are growing, you're going to be just fine, because by default, those places are getting swept up with them and experiencing the growth in real estate. Scalable. I know we touched a little bit on single families, but what we're going to look at and showcase in these slides is duplexes and fourplexes. Okay. Here are some of the current and upcoming developments in the area. Again, you're going to notice it's going to be in the Central Texas corridor, right? If you can see here, this little stretch where all these stars are at is I-35, Interstate 35, and then you have Interstate 10. You're going to notice that a lot of the builds are being, a lot of the developments are happening in these corridors. And it's not a coincidence. It's done for a reason, because that's where employment is happening. That's where growth is happening. If you look at these communities here to the left, notice that these are all duplex communities. So the builders are really focusing on like demographics and growth, right? They're talking to the Chamber of Commerce. They're figuring out, okay, where are you guys going? These communities are in those direct paths of growth. So it's important to keep these in mind. Okay. We're going to talk about 3 communities this evening. These communities, I will say hands down, are probably the best builds that have happened in the Central Texas region. A lot of the realtors within Marshall Reddick here locally, when we went and walked these properties, we were very impressed at the location, and we were very impressed at the build type. You're going to notice that a lot of these duplexes have a very solid amount of square footage for being a duplex. It's almost like a single family home inside of a multifamily package. I'm going to show everyone scenarios in each community. I'm showing you like year 1, what it looks like with all the incentives, and then year 2, when you go to being on your own without the incentives. But one of the communities that's going up is Amanda Park duplexes in the far west in San Antonio. Now, if you look, when you look at the map and you look at far west San Antonio, and you look at San Antonio as a whole, you're going to be like, wait a minute, like Josh, that looks very far. Well, yeah, it's far west, but the city is sprawling out, and it's slowly growing in a counterclockwise way on that southwest corridor between 8 and 10, if you're looking at the map like a clock. Now, when you're looking at this build, it's in an area where there's a bunch of white-collared workers and heavy military presence. The military service members in this corridor are getting a stipend, a BAH, a base allowable for housing, anywhere between $1,800 and $2,200 a month outside of their LES statement or their paycheck. So rents are going to be solid. You're going to have an amazing tenant, long-term tenant. Most of these guys are sticking in around 2 to 3 years average. Okay. Now let's look at the numbers here real quick. I'm going to mention a couple things that I want you to take note of. This is what year one looks like on this duplex. This duplex is roughly 1650, 1670 square feet each side, okay? And the beauty of this duplex is that it has a it has a master bedroom downstairs with the rest of the bedrooms upstairs, okay? Now, here's a scenario with a 4.75% rate that can be achieved with additional money going from the buyer, okay? Now, this is like best case scenario, and we're also in, if you're attending this webinar, we want to put out there that if you contract on one of these duplexes, we're going to provide 1 year of free management to you. So you get your first year free to help you with your cash flow. And this is what that scenario looks like. This is what your first year of after fixed expenses would look like as far as a cash flow. So you're looking a little over 600 a month. And that's with conservative rents. These are rents that the whole Marshall Reddick team put their heads together and said, hey, like this is a rent that's very achievable for that area. So that's year one. Let's go to year two. So year two, after the management is now starting to be assessed, right? Now it's kicking in. Your monthly income would be 381, but that's not taking into account a couple things. I didn't account for a rent bump after the renewal. And remember, this is a brand new build, and I didn't even adjust the maintenance from 8% on either vacancy or maintenance. That's being very conservative because we know it's a new build. The likelihood of a maintenance issue coming up costing you money out of your pocket is very low. You can probably put that to a 4%, but nonetheless, we kept it at 8% to be conservative. Okay. Now, one of the cool things about these duplexes in the far west, where these are situated in a street that faces your elementary school, Potranco Elementary, your middle school, and your high school, brand new high school that's being built directly in front of this community. The kids can literally walk across the street and go to their schools, kinder through 12, in this community. The builder is also putting some skin in the game. The previous scenario that I showed you was going to cost additional monies, right? You're going to have to buy points to get to the 4.75. But with this deal right here, the builders already got a commitment set up at 5.25%. And this is what that would look like. So this would be your year one cash flow after no management fee at the 5.25% rate. So it would be 532. Then we're going to look at year two. After year two, after year one, your year two looks like 260. Again, that's not accounting for a rent bump. A lot of us feel very confident about this community just because of the special attributes that it has, that it's right in front of the school system. It's in a growing corridor of San Antonio, heavy military presence. It just got a lot of, it's got a good recipe for success is what we're trying to say. And with the builder providing a 5.25% rate, that's on a 10-year arm. It's just, it's a solid deal. Now, shifting and going to the north corridor, south of Austin, there is a town or city called Buda, Texas. Okay. What we're seeing is prices, cost of living in Austin is getting expensive, right? So you're seeing a slight exodus go from central Austin, South Austin, and they're going little by little, they're going to the outskirts to get some affordability in their living space. And they're moving down to Buda. Buda is about 20 to 25 minutes south of Austin. And the same product that's being built in Amanda Park is also being built in Emma Park. So here's an amazing product. This duplex is 1,800 square feet each side. It's an amazing floor plan. Okay. A lots of space. Rents you're going to see in this place are going to be 4,500 total for both sides included. That's 2,250 a door. Year one, this is what the interest rate that's being offered by the builder currently at 5.25%. Your cash flow is going to be 789.32. Once the management fee kicks back in, your cash flow is going to be 458.12. So when people in South Austin are looking at a rent for a building like this at 2,250, and let's just say even if it was 2,200, being conservative, for a building of this size and that many rooms, that's a very competitive rent rate compared to the surrounding areas of Austin and Buda. And the appreciation play here is solid. San Antonio usually has been hovering a little over a 5%. This is a little closer to 6%, believe it or not. That's the projection that's out there for Buda and South Austin in the coming years. Now we're getting uber aggressive, right? So this is the same floor plan, but now I'm going to show it to you at 4.75%. If you were willing to put some money out of your pocket to buy some extra points to get you down to a 4.75, that is a play that's out there. And then you would look at a cash flow of 928 for the building on a monthly basis. That's year one with no management fee. Year two, you're looking at 597. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Amanda Park, far west, right? Those were duplexes in the far west. Then we talked about Emma Park in South Austin, Buda, right? That's the name of the town. Now let's go back to the far west. So literally minutes away from Amanda Park, you have the Hunter's Ranch Estates fourplexes. Now the cool thing is that this builder has provided an amazing rate product to the consumer. Along with CMG, they're doing a 4.25% rate on a 10-year ARM. A 4.25% on multifamily is unheard of right now. Like, you're not going to see that. And this builder is being very aggressive. He wants to see some activity in his community. The doors are renting for $1,550 to $1,500 a door. Those are established rents. I believe everything that we've closed on, and they're even pre-leasing right now at $1,500 to $1,550. No problem. Those are true rents that they're getting. This is the cash flow that you would see year one at a 4.25%, which is 987.37. Okay. Now we go to year two. Once your management fee kicks back in, you're looking at 538.41. Again, this is at a 4.25% rate. It's a rate commitment already established by the builder. That's what's being offered to the investor.
Thanks, Josh. That was excellent. And before we keep going, just want to let you guys know, if you have any questions, start typing them in the chat now. We have just a couple more slides here, but we'd love to start answering your questions and have somewhat of a Q&A based on your questions here at the end of our slides. So a couple more slides here, but if you could start typing your questions in now, then Josh and I will review them and work on answering those. But if you guys have any questions on that, we'd love to answer. But in the meantime, I just want to talk about property management. I know that briefly we mentioned that Marshall Reddick is a full service property management company, but what does that mean? Well, it's important to note that Marshall Reddick believes we should only profit when our landlords profit. And what I mean by that is we charge a percentage of the monthly rent collected, and we don't charge when your property is vacant. So when you collect your rent, we collect our management fee. And on the flip side is we don't charge for maintenance. We find it to be a conflict of interest when companies have their own in-house maintenance team or they get a kickback from a preferred vendor. Instead, for us, we outsource our maintenance. So those are the biggest key takeaways for Marshall Reddick. And our management fee for single families is 9%. When you're looking at that 2 to 4 range that we looked at today, the management fee is going to be 8%. And then our only other fees that we're going to have is leasing fee. The leasing fee is really a commission incentive to a real estate leasing agent. It's a licensed agent, and they're going to be leasing your property out, similar to how Josh will be helping you find a property or sell a property. You'll have a leasing agent that will lease the property for you. That's 50% of 1 month's rent to place a tenant. Last is you have the lease renewal fee. This is when we do a full home inspection. We're going to do a market analysis report at the 12-month mark. We always do 12-month leases, and we want to renew your property for another 12 months at the increased rent amount. And that's going to be the lease renewal fee, which is 15%. So those are really our only 3 fees. And it's just a little bit about Marshall Reddick. Obviously, we are a full service, so we collect rent, disperse to you. We handle the tenants. We coordinate any HOA or insurance claims that are needed, and we make sure that the leasing is done correctly. And that's a little bit about Marshall Reddick Property Management. Now, what sets us apart, or what should you look for in a property manager? Well, first is, what is the software they're using? Marshall Reddick pays for a very intuitive software called AppFolio. I'm sure some of you have heard of AppFolio before, some of you might not have. It's just a very easy to use interface for owners. It makes it simple as you scale your portfolio, whether that be in the same market or multiple markets, it's all in one place. So you can track the progress of your property. You can do custom reports with different date ranges to basically see anything pertaining to your property. Something else is there a maintenance conflict of interest? I know I mentioned that, but you don't want to go with a company that has an in-house maintenance team and maybe charges a lower management fee or a flat fee, and then racks up all of their prices on maintenance and has multiple charges a month, and that's really where they profit on 10 to 15% of all of their maintenance repairs. Next is what's important, the cost of the service or the quality of the service that you're going to get. So when you look at management costs, some companies might have a very low fee, but they also might have a really low quality of service. At the same time, like, what is the quality of service that you want? So Marshall Reddick is not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive, but I like to think that we're the best option, bang for your buck. How responsive is the company? Well, at least for us, we like to have a 24-hour response policy. We want to make sure that we respond to you quickly, whether it be emails or calls or texts. Same with tenants. If there's an emergency call, Marshall Reddick has a 24-hour emergency line. Make sure your company has something similar. They respond to tenants, they respond to any claims, whether it be HOA. It's good to have a responsive management company. And then definitely look on the online reviews. So if you're looking up companies, look at their Google page, look at their Yelp page, see what owners are saying about them, see what tenants are saying about them. How are they responding to negative reviews? It's one thing to get a negative review. It's another thing to have a professional response to that review. Finally, what is their cancellation policy? Are you locked into a contract for 3 years? Is it difficult to cancel? Are they going to charge you a lot? Or are they reasonable? Is it just a 1-year contract that renews on a month-to-month basis? Those are things that we would encourage you to look for in a property manager. And as Josh mentioned earlier, really our investment Bible or our property rating ebook you can find on our website, marshallreddick.com/ebook. We'd be happy to talk over that ebook with you, but it's a really good resource to help understand what property you're looking for and what makes sense to fit your goals. And basically anything that we've gone over today, there's probably a Learn post or a webinar or some sort of article on it you can find on our website. So all of our resources are free. This video will be recorded and uploaded to our website as well. You can just go to marshallreddick.com/learn, and we'd be happy to talk through any questions you have on our Learn page as well. If you want to figure out how to navigate it, or if there's an article that you liked and you want to dive more into, we're more than happy to answer questions on it. And that's kind of the end of our presentation here. So I see, just taking a look at some questions. Josh, are you able to see some of the questions in the chat here?
Yeah, great question. No, for the duplex communities that I mentioned in the slides, there is no MUD tax. Obviously, there are some single family communities sprinkled in the north that do have a MUD, but it's rare for us. That's more like we see that more in like the Houston, Dallas areas, the MUD setups.
Thank you, Josh. And we kind of just want to open it up now. We'll stay on for a couple minutes here to see if you guys have any questions. If not, we'll also follow up. There's a couple question survey just to let us know how you thought the presentation went, if there's anything you were hoping to learn, or maybe if you had any feedback or just questions in general. It's also going to be on the survey as you exit. But in the meantime, we're happy to kind of stay here and answer any additional questions that come in.
Absolutely. One of the things that I want to share while we still have some time, I know that Cameron spoke some about the property management side of things, but the cool thing about having property management as part of the process when doing out-of-state investing through Marshall Reddick is that I'll hand the baton down to the next person, and it'll be still monitored by the sales team to make sure that your property is leased. So we don't disappear. Like I just don't sell you the property and tell you good luck. You know, hopefully it gets leased. We are constantly behind the leasing team, and they will be updating you every Tuesday up until your property's leased of the traffic, how things are going, maybe a suggestion to edit and get the property leased a little faster. So you do have a full service team in the property management side, but also it is being supported just like you would by the sales team to make sure that the property gets leased once you get the property closed.
I think we had a question to explain the interest rate buy downs. I know that some of them vary from property to property, but maybe Josh, if you want to go into that forward commitment financing for a brief second here.
Yeah. So the interest rate buy down. So what that basically is the cool thing is the properties that I showcased have a 5.25% rate on the duplexes already bought by the builder, which that doesn't have to be arranged by you as a transaction. It's already set up that way if you go into a contract. The only caveat is you have to use a CMG lender with Reed Hazard. If you want to get uber aggressive and say, hey, the builder got me to the 5.25%, but I'm willing to buy, 2 more points or 3 more points against the. So a point is basically 1% of the loan amount after your down payment, right? So whatever your loan amount is, times it times 1%, and the lender is going to tell you, hey, it's going to take 3 points, right, to get you to a 4.75%, right? And that's usually what we see going from a 5.25 to a 4.75. If you're looking at property and you want like specific numbers, we can hand you that information. Just reach out to Cameron or myself, and we can break down those scenarios with Reed Hazard, the lender, and we'll tell you the specifics around the amount of cost it'll get you to a 4.75 or even a 4.25. But I think the sweet spot right now is you want to be at a 4.75 or a 5.25 because it's less cost to you. I hope that answers the question in a high level. Heard there was a state proposal to lower property taxes. Yes. We are actually seeing a little bit of that sprinkled around, and it's happening. We don't know, there's no rhyme or reason to how that's happening, but we are seeing some grace given in the taxes. Really cool thing I want to point out is some of the areas that the builders specifically picked for those duplexes, and I know I use this as like a part of my search criteria for the clients, is that I go to areas that already have low property taxes anyway. There are areas that are like, you know, ridiculous at 2.5, 2.7%. Obviously, those won't work. I can't showcase that to you because it won't pencil out. But the duplexes that you saw today, I mean, they have amazing property tax rates, and that's why they pencil out. Not to mention they have the amazing rate commitment set up as well. But yes, it is happening. Governor Abbott is actively petitioning to bring property taxes much lower. And we will see more of that in the coming months as we get to September 1st when things change in 2024.
Awesome. And I don't see any more questions coming in unless you guys had any more. That kind of wraps it up for today. I appreciate everyone for joining us. Have a wonderful night. We're going to go ahead and close out here, and we look forward to following up with you. Once again, there's going to be a couple question survey here. Please fill that out as honest as possible. We really appreciate your feedback, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take care and have a great night, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.